Great show.
Good morning. It's Saturday, August the 3rd. There are 93 days until Election Day. It's been just 13 days since Vice President Kamala Harris took over at the top of the ticket. And yesterday, the DNC announced that Harris has received enough votes from Democratic delegates to secure the party's presidential nomination, although we should note that she will not be the official nominee until the DNC makes that announcement at the end of the virtual roll call. It began Thursday. It's set to conclude Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern. President Biden took to X to congratulate his vice president. Quote, "One of the best decisions I've made was picking Kamala Harris as my vice president. Now that she will be our party's nominee, I couldn't be prouder. Let's win this." We continue to await Harris's decision on who she will pick for a running mate. We know the campaign vetting team has met with 6 potential candidates. We know a decision is expected before a Tuesday rally in Philadelphia, where they are anticipated to appear on the stage together. We also know that in a very short time, Harris has built significant enthusiasm and momentum. She brought in $310 million in July. Her campaign entered August with $377 million in cash, which it says is a record for a presidential campaign at this stage in the election cycle. Trump's campaign raised $139 million in that time, less than half of what Harris did, and has $327 million on hand, also less than the Harris campaign. Around 3 p.m. yesterday, in promoting a rally that he'll be hosting later today in Atlanta, Trump sent a fundraising email that read, quote, "24 hours until we unleash hell. At this time tomorrow, crooked Kamala's worst nightmares come true," end quote. Since the RNC, where, remember, Trump and the GOP called for unity, Trump has grown increasingly belligerent. Here's a taste of what Trump's pitch to the nation has been like.
I want to be nice. They all say, I think he's changed. I think he's changed since 2 weeks ago. Something affected him. No, I haven't changed. Maybe I've gotten worse. I'm being indicted for you. Did you like my mugshot? Did you like the mugshot? 2 weeks ago, I was talking about Biden. I didn't even know her name. Nobody did. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. She was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn, and she became a black person. I've done so much for the black population of this country. Coming from the border are millions and millions of people that happen to be taking black jobs. You had the best.
What exactly is a black job, sir?
A black job is anybody that has a job.
So much for unity. In essence, this pitch is a bigoted bit of this, a racist bit of that, sprinkled all together in a word salad to be regurgitated over and over at stops across the country. It's nothing more than red meat for his core base. It's meant to deflect from the fact that he has no real message for the country other than hate. It's also meant to obscure and deflect from the actual plans that Trump and the right have, should he retake the White House, plans that are contained in this, the 922-page playbook called Project 2025. The policies in here are so unpopular that Trump and his cohort continue to try and distance themselves from it in public. But that's not easy work. As we've discussed for months here on Velshi, Project 2025 was written specifically for Trump, largely written by his own allies, including many key figures from his last administration. And none other than Trump's new running mate, J.D. Vance, wrote the foreword for the upcoming book from Kevin Roberts, the president of the Heritage Foundation, who spearheaded and oversaw Project 2025. This week, Robert announced that Project 2025 was winding down its policy work, although a source tells NBC News that Project 2025 itself is not shutting down. And make no mistake about it, this isn't a change of plans. Right there in that 922-page manifesto, they aren't going away if Trump retakes the White House. This is actually our future. Joining me now is Molly Jong-Fast, special correspondent for Vanity Fair, host of the Fast Politics podcast, MSNBC political analyst as well, and, of course, Michael Steele, former chairman of the Republican National Committee. And, of course, you know him as one of the co-hosts of the program that precedes this one, The Weekend. Airs right before Velshi, right here on MSNBC. Welcome to you, friends. Thank you for being here. Michael, you noted on X that Trump, quote, crapped the bed at NABJ, calling Trump a petulant ass. But his remarks, they weren't really meant for you and me. Or the audience in front of him. It was meant for his MAGA universe, although some people wonder What was that message and why?
Well, a lot of it is the way Donald Trump is looking at prosecuting this election. And this is one of the struggles between his current campaign team, which is a very sophisticated team of players. They have done a lot to get this campaign much better organized and focused on moving towards the goal of winning the election. Then Donald Trump has a different idea when he wants to put his daughter-in-law in charge of the RNC. They wind up firing people, and then he's still trying to pull it back in the direction he wants to go. And a good example of that was what we saw on the stage, where that was not the narrative his campaign team wanted to put out there, but it was the narrative Donald Trump wants to prosecute, because in his mind's eye, he needs more of his base to turn out. The idea of expanding the universe of people who are voting for him, that's too tiresome. That's way too involved. It's easier to get the people who love me and want to be with me and in my presence to come out and vote. So that's going to be a real challenge in some of these key battleground states. That's why the polling, folks, is so important to understand and not get tripped up on. Even when it's good for Harris right now, you can't get tripped up on what those numbers say, because it's not a reflection of who actually will vote. It's not a reflection of what the ground game is in any given state, in any given county, in any given district. And that's where the Democrats, as we talked about in our last hour, with Mr. Kinnaman, who's running that operation, have put the people in place. The Trump campaign have not. So when he's on that stage saying what he's saying, to your point, Ali, he's not talking about to folks to expand the number of people who would turn out. He's trying to make sure that his hardcore base turns out in a larger number.
Right, and that's where the enthusiasm part comes into this conversation. If people are enthused, that helps them to vote. And if groups of people are enthused, and Molly, this is interesting because Donald Trump's attacks on Kamala Harris are not landing for a couple of reasons. Some of them are just bad. They're just not that effective. And some of them are entirely turned around by this enthusiastic base of supporters of Kamala Harris, turned into memes and turned into things that cause people to get enthusiastic. That's the answer. I think Michael's point is right. Polls are always tight in this country with presidential races, or have been for many cycles now. The issue is going to come down to who wants to support who signs up to volunteer, who donates, and who comes out to vote.
Yeah, I also think one of the things about Harris, which we've seen before with Obama, is there's joy. And so he's trying to turn that joy against her. You know, those videos of her laughing, that was one attack, or her cooking. And I think people just like that. It's been a long, 8 years, 10 years since Trump came into the fray. And I think people are refreshed by just a normal person cooking a turkey. And so I do think that there is a kind of joy in this campaign that we haven't seen in a while in American politics. I also think that, people are galvanized for her. And Trump has only the same material. He just keeps recycling the same attacks. So a lot of the attacks he's using on her, he used on Hillary Clinton. And I think that you can't just keep using these same attacks. You got to think of something new.
Well, Michael, something you were talking about just moments ago, Eric Holder, the former Attorney General, has arrived at the Naval Observatory, the Vice President's official residence. He obviously is going to have his vetting papers, and they're going to have a very, very important conversation. So we're going to keep an eye on that. We'll see it in a moment. I want to ask you, Michael, about the mandate for leadership. You're familiar with this document because you were the head of the Republican Party. They've been putting this out since Reagan's days. It's a version of this, right? The idea that a conservative think tank like the Heritage Foundation would lay some sort of framework. And in fact, it's usually been pretty successful with conservative administrations. There's the car that was carrying Eric Holder at the Naval Observatory. We're just looking at that. What's different about this Project 2025? What's different about this version of the mandate for leadership?
Well, okay. So what do you notice that's absent in those 900 pages? Any real formulation of policy that can be translated into congressional action on the environment, on the health care, on the economy, infrastructure, on Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Beyond, okay, we need to get rid of the Department of Commerce. We need to get that's the economic plan. We need to get rid of the Department of Education. That's the education plan. We need to get rid of. We need to rename, Health and Human Services to the Department of Life, right? So you can see that transfiguration of these agencies, if they're not eliminated, into something to meet what is now the new mindset of this GOP, the MAGA mindset. When you go back and you look at what was written and what was said in the Reagan era, the Bush era, both Bushes, for example, yeah, there was this focus on the downsizing of government and so forth, but it was connected to other things that mattered, like 1,000 points of lights, no child left behind. There were articulable policies that would also be a big part of that administration's work. That's not what's here. What's here is the wholesale grabbing of the federal government, giving it solely to the executive, right? Carving out Congress altogether. Doesn't really matter because Congress is nothing but a nod and a wink anyway, right? And this is where the power center is going to be. The courts have effectively done that now. I don't know if it was planned or this is just bad karma, the way this is aligned. But when the court said to Donald Trump effectively, all you need to do is claim it as an official act, you can do whatever you want to do, boo, we good. Right? Yep. That now put the imprimatur of power in the hands of this administration, which makes that document, those 900 pages you have, that much more deadly. That much more deadly. Because Donald Trump now can declare pretty much anything he wants in his term as an official act, and there's no way you can undo it, no way you can challenge it in court. It is what it will be. So those 900 pages mean more now than they did before the Supreme Court made its ruling.
And the other issue, Molly, and I find in circles people are talking about this much more. Maybe it's because I hold this up every time I can, and people like Michael talk about it on his show, and they have the necessary interviews. People need to know about this because the more they know about this, the more they want to run away from it. It's aside from being poorly written and hard to read, it's got all the stuff. And if you vote for a Republican in November, then you can't be mad next August when you say, I can't believe they did that. It's all written down here.
Yeah, and I think, look, it reads like stereo instructions for a reason, because it's not written to be readable, right? It's written because this is their plan. And I would say they gleefully say their plan is to dismantle the administrative state, which means all of the things that FDR did, the Department of Education, the gestalt of like having a federal government that takes care of people goes away. And that is their policy. And one of the reasons they don't talk about policy so much is because they know it's not very popular. I mean, these ideas, people don't want to lose Social Security. They don't want to lose their entitlements. And ultimately, that may not be exactly what the plan is, but it's moving in that direction.
Thanks to both of you. We appreciate it. Molly John Fast, special correspondent from Vanity Fair and MSNBC political analyst. Michael Steele, co-host of The Weekend here on MSNBC and former chair of the Republican National Committee. We love that you got us started off this morning. Thank you. If that conversation made you want even more Michael Steele, by the way, on Saturday, September 7th, you can attend MSNBC Live Democracy 2024, our premier fan event, live event in Brooklyn, New York. This is the first of its kind in person. It's interactive with some of your favorite hosts and experts, including me, Chris Hayes, Joy Reid, Rachel Maddow, Steve Kornacki, Michael Steele, and more. Scan the QR code on your screen to buy your tickets today. I will see you there. Still ahead, the hard work and rare diplomacy that it took to pull off Thursday's historic prisoner swap, the White House calling the feat, quote, vintage Joe Biden. Plus, purging military leadership, hiring freezes at the CIA, and eliminating the Department of Homeland Security entirely. Those are just some of the plans that Project 2025 has for America's defense and intelligence agencies. We'll take you inside Project 2025. And later, racism in a post-racial world. The author of The Last White Man joins me for the Velshi Band Book Club.
Higher shipping rates may be the cost of doing business, but at what cost? Turn shipping to your advantage with low-cost ground shipping from the United States Postal Service.
Everywhere but the seat. The seat is leather.
Alan, we get it. You love your bike. We do too.
That's why we're America's #1 motorcycle insurer.
But do you have to wedge it into everything?
What? I don't do that. This reminds me of my bike. The Wolf was about the size of my new motorcycle. Have you seen it, by the way? Happy birthday, Grandma!
Really?
Look how the brushstrokes follow the line of the gas tank.
Hey!
Brought my +1. Jamie.
The darkness of bipolar depression made me feel like I was losing interest in the things I love. Then I found a chance to let in the light.
Discover Capilita. Unlike some medicines that only treat bipolar 1, Capilita is proven to deliver significant symptom relief from both bipolar 1 and 2 depression. And in clinical trials, movement disorders and weight gain were not common.
Capilita can cause serious side effects. Call your doctor about sudden mood changes, behaviors, or suicidal thoughts right away. Antidepressants may increase these risks in young adults. Elderly dementia patients have increased risk of death or stroke. Capilita is not approved for dementia-related psychosis. Report fever, confusion, or stiff muscles which may be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements which may be permanent. Common side effects include sleepiness, dizziness, nausea, and dry mouth. These aren't all the side effects.
In the darkness of bipolar 1 and 2 depression, Capilita can help you let in the light. Ask your doctor about Capilita. Find savings and support at capilita.com.
Bounce back fast from heartburn with Tums Gummy Bites and love food back.
Waterline broke. Replacing could cost thousands. Not covered by homeowners insurance.
Honey, wake up. Here's Tom Rusin, CEO of HomeServe.
A plan from HomeServe pays for the covered repair cost for water lines, and we send a qualified contractor. The American dream of owning a home doesn't need to be a nightmare. Sleep well with HomeServe.
Plans from HomeServe start at just $7.99 a month.
Call 1-800-355-9395 or visit homeserve.com.
We were wondering if anything happened to us.
We want you to take the kids.
Doesn't count. What you need is a will, something you can sign and make official. Start your will at trustandwill.com and make it count.
In just 1 year, I had over $900 in banking fees. I had enough. I switched to Chime. There's no overdraft fees, no monthly fees. I'm saving hundreds for my daughter's future. For a normal guy like me, I've given myself a small raise. Join me at chime.com.
We do so much behind the scenes to keep our families on track. That's why we got a Skylight calendar, an all-in-one digital organizer that does way more than just manage our schedule. In a few taps, I can create a chore chart that my kids absolutely love, and a ton of to-do lists that keep us on task for errands, grocery shopping, and so much more. The best part? I can take everything with me on the go with the free app. Now, with Skylight Calendar, everyone's on the same page. Always.
More than ever, you need clarity. More than ever, trust is everything. More than ever, democracy needs an ally. Facts must win the day. And questions need to be answered. Because more than ever, the work we do will reverberate for generations.
Thursday night, 11:38 p.m. on the tarmac at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland, 3 Americans wrongfully imprisoned in Russia touched down on home soil thanks to a 7-country prisoner swap that took 2 years to negotiate. Evan Gerskovich, Paul Whelan, and Alsu Kurmasheva were greeted by President Biden and Vice President Harris. Vladimir Kara-Murza, a Russian opposition leader and U.S. permanent resident, was also released. He landed in Germany. With a total of 24 prisoners involved, it is the largest prisoner swap between the United States and Russia since the Cold War. Historic, to say the least. Paul Whelan, a 54-year-old Marine veteran, had been in Russian custody for more than 5 years following his arrest at a Moscow hotel where he was attending a friend's wedding. Whelan was serving a 16-year sentence in a high-security penal colony, convicted of espionage after accepting a flash drive from a Russian acquaintance. The journalist Alsu Kurmasheva is a 47-year-old mother of 2 and a dual U.S.-Russian citizen. In June of last year, Kurmasheva was working for Radio Free Europe in Prague when she flew to Russia to visit her elderly mother. She was detained at the airport on her way home and was subsequently sentenced to 6.5 years in a Russian penal colony. She was accused of spreading false information about the Russian army. She spent 9 months in a Russian prison. And 32-year-old journalist Evan Gershkovich, the son of Russian immigrants who fled the Soviet Union in 1979. Gershkovich moved to Russia in 2017 to write for the Moscow Times before joining the Wall Street Journal. Nearly a year and a half ago, Gershkovich was arrested while interviewing factory workers in Western Russia. Last month, he was convicted of espionage in what was widely considered a sham trial and sentenced to 16 years in prison. And even after 15 and a half months, in captivity, Gershkovich was dogged as a reporter. In a form that he had to fill out before leaving Russian prison, he asked if Vladimir Putin would sit down for an interview. His colleagues at the Wall Street Journal made sure his name never left the news cycle. They pressed the U.S. government hard to bring Evan home, but they had help from a secret weapon. Evan's mother, Ella Millman. Here she is, leaping into Evan's arms on the tarmac on Thursday night. Ella played an extraordinary role in getting her son home, even cornering German Chancellor Olaf Scholz at a Manhattan gala last September to ask for help freeing her son. She turned to Scholz for help because of the 7 countries involved in this deal, she knew that the linchpin sat in jail in Berlin. The prisoner who Vladimir Putin wanted, convicted murderer and hitman Vadim Krasikov, was serving a life sentence in Germany for murdering a Chechen dissident in broad daylight in a public park in Berlin. German authorities say Krasikov was sent to Germany with a fake passport and orders to kill straight from the Kremlin. They accused him of committing state-sponsored murder. Releasing Krasikov, a convicted murderer, was politically difficult for Scholz, but he was persuaded by Gershkovich's mother and by President Joe Biden. According to the Washington Post, during a meeting at the White House on February 9th, Scholz told Biden, quote, "For you, I will do this."
So for anyone who questions whether allies matter, they do. They matter. And today is a powerful example of why it's vital to have friends in this world. Friends you can trust, work with, and depend upon.
That's the power of allyship and good diplomacy. Releasing Krasikov unlocked the rest of it. Russia would release 5 German nationals and 7 Russian citizens being held as political prisoners, along with Whelan, Gershkovich, Kurmasheva, and Kara-Murza, in exchange for Krasikov and 7 other Russians, intelligence operatives and hackers. The deal was agreed upon in principle on July 17th, just an hour before President Biden announced that he would not be seeking a second term. Isolated with COVID-19 in his home in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, Biden was on the phone with the Slovenian prime minister to secure their side of the deal. A moment of vindication for a president who has always insisted on the importance of our foreign allies and protecting democracy around the world. Which brings me to our friend Vladimir Kara-Murza, who was imprisoned in Russia for doing just that. Kara-Murza, now a Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for articles that he penned from a Russian cell, was arrested in 2022 for speaking out against Putin's war in Ukraine. Even before that, Russian authorities had poisoned him twice, but he survived. He's now receiving medical care in Germany. I spoke with Vladimir Kara-Murza on this show one day before he was arrested, and even then, he knew the risk he was taking. Are you worried about speaking out against the Russian government and against this war and invasion from Russia?
We all know the price. We all know the cost. But we also know that there are millions of people in Russia who categorically oppose Putin regime and everything it's doing, both in terms of domestic repression and in terms of external aggression. We know that there are many people in Russia who want our country to be a normal, modern, democratic European state. I think it would be very demoralizing if those of us who are sort of the public faces of the pro-democracy movement, of the opposition movement, would all just leave the country. I do not, condemn anybody. It's everybody's personal decision. But if you're asking about me, I'm a Russian politician. Russia is my country. Russia is my home, and this is where I have to be.
I'm worried for you, my friend. You have been a source of my information for many, many years, so I'll worry on your behalf. In the days leading up to his arrest, the day after that interview, Vladimir Kara-Murza had dinner with another longtime friend of our show and our next guest, Bill Browder, who begged Kara-Murza not to return to Russia. Browder tried to appeal to his sense of duty, arguing that if Kara-Murza was thrown in prison, the people of Russia would be deprived of his pro-democracy message. He told Browder, quote, "Bill, sometimes symbols are more important." Well, today, Vladimir Kara-Murza is more than a symbol. He's finally a free man.
The virus that causes shingles is sleeping in 99% of people over 50. It's lying dormant, waiting, and could reactivate. Shingles strikes as a painful, blistering rash that can last for weeks, and it could wake at any time. Think you are not at risk for shingles? It's time to wake up, because shingles could wake up in you. If you're over 50, talk to your doctor or pharmacist about shingles prevention.
Is your shower trying to tell you something? Is getting in and out of the bathtub becoming a safety concern? Are you worried about the cost of a bathroom remodel that could go on for weeks and weeks? Well, now you can have a gorgeous new bath or shower that's safer at a price you can afford with a one-day jacuzzi bath remodel.
It was done the same day. We did not have to wait. It is amazing.
I would give this whole experience an A+. I definitely wish I would have called sooner.
From soft close shower doors and adjustable shower heads to features like grab bars and custom seats that combine safety and style, it's never been easier. Get your free design consultation, schedule your one-day installation, and start loving your new bath or shower right away.
Only weeks left to get waived installation and no interest and no payments for up to 1 year. Go to jacuzzibathremodel.com or call 800-990-5143. That's 800-990-5143. Call now.
The crazy thing about GLP-1s through Roe is that my cravings have completely disappeared. I'm not quite sure how something that's just a little tiny prick can be so powerful in so many different ways.
Meet the weekly shop that helps you lose weight. Get started at Ro.co.
My name's Trevor. I've tried other diets in the past, never lasted. Before too long, my cravings came back, especially my sugar cravings, and it fell off the wagon. Release worked fast. My sweet tooth is gone. I'm so happy with my progress, and now I love myself.
After Homoglow cleaned our place for $19, we fired our old housekeeper. Homoglow tackled everything, from our kitchen to our bathroom, all our laundry. You just pick a date, pick a cleaner, and enjoy a spotless house for $19.
Why do couples choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
I need help with their snoring.
Sleep Number does that.
Thank you.
Save 40% on the Sleep Number limited edition smart bed, plus free home delivery on select smart beds when you add an adjustable base. Shop now.
My gosh, how good is that? I love how light it feels. It's not heavy, it's not cakey. I feel like I'm not wearing any makeup at all. Most liquid foundations usually sit in the fine lines and pores. It makes them more visible and it feels so heavy on the skin. This baked powder foundation has velvety and creamy texture with light to medium long-lasting coverage. I don't see any other reason to try any other makeup foundation ever.
This is a story about the one who keeps it all moving. He is measured, precise. He thinks ahead, stocks the right parts, and knows just where to find them. Because for the one, this facility is about more than business. The industrial-grade products you need delivered fast. Call, click Grainger.com or stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
It's almost time. Verizon Small Business Days are coming, August 5th to the 11th. Meet with our experts, get a free tech check, and special offers. Don't miss out. Get started today.
No one should have to choose between good vision and great value. That's why America's Best is slashing their prices. During the Wise Buy sales event, get 2 progressives and a comprehensive eye exam for just $129.95. Book an exam online today.
Joining me now for more on this historic prisoner swap is Bill Browder. He's the CEO of Hermitage Capital Management, the head of the Global Magnitsky Justice Campaign, and the author of Freezing Order, a true story of Russian money laundering, murder, and surviving Vladimir Putin's wrath. As we mentioned, he's also a friend of Vladimir Kara-Murza's. Bill, good to see you again this week. I'm glad we've had this occasion to talk. Normally, we're talking sort of just about bad things. Upon his arrival in Germany, Vladimir gave an interview with Sky News interviews, and I want to play a little part of it. It's relevant to the conversation I want to have with you. Let's listen together.
However much these words have been soiled by the Kremlin propaganda, I mean them sincerely. I love my country. I love Russia. And I think that Russia deserves so much better than being run by a corrupt, murderous, authoritarian, KGB-led dictatorship. I think Russia deserves to be a normal, modern, democratic European country. I have absolutely no doubt, as a historian, that that day will come. And as a politician, I'm going to do everything that I can, everything in my power, to try to bring that day a little bit closer.
So in a moment, I want to just talk to you about the goal for Russia, the idea that that's always been his goal, to make Russia a better, fairer place. But just talk about him. He's lost a lot of weight, but he's the same old Vladimir.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was really happy to see him come out swinging so hard at the press conference, in the interviews. He's the same Vladimir. I mean, he's literally lost like a third of his body weight, but he's the same person inside. And hopefully over the next weeks and months, he can recover from this unbelievable ordeal. Solitary confinement for 1 year, sitting in a 4x6 cell, 23 hours a day. I mean, it's impossible to even imagine the duress that he was under. I'm just so happy to see him out alive, and the same Vladimir that we all know and love.
You know, we've spent a lot of time in the last few years talking about Russia and expansionism and Ukraine and what it might do, and how Biden has held Russia off and Putin might give him Ukraine. But Vladimir has had a slightly different focus, and one that you've also had, and that is making Russia a better place for Russians. There are most Russians are just good, decent people who, like the rest of us, would just like to live their lives in fairness and with some prosperity.
Well, indeed. I mean, if you look at what's happening to Russia, Vladimir Putin and a group of KGB criminals have basically occupied the country. And in doing so, they've sent 500,000 young Russian men to their death in battle. They've created similar numbers of Ukrainian deaths. They've bombed kindergartens and so on. I don't think that Putin is doing this in the name of Russians. He's doing this in the name of keeping himself in power, because if at any moment he's not in power, he ends up losing all the money he's stolen, goes to jail, and probably dies. And so he's basically taken Russia and completely ruined the country. And one would hope that there's going to be a moment when the Putin regime collapses, when this fascist, totalitarian, criminal dictatorship crashes and is destroyed. And from the ashes of that, one would hope that someone like Vladimir Kara-Murza, who believes in peace, who believes in democracy, who believes in free speech, would be one of the people leading Russia in a world where Russia would pay its reparations to Ukraine, would make peace with the West, and would provide some type of normal life for their citizens going forward.
Let me ask you about the role of allyship and the role that the German chancellor, for instance, played. Vice President Harris was involved in that. Joe Biden himself was in it. Olaf Scholz, to release this assassin, that's not an easy thing to do in Germany, right? They were not getting the better end of that trade. Donald Trump enjoyed a particularly poor relationship with the then German chancellor. And this is sort of an underscoring point that in order to use this kind of allyship and this kind of statecraft and get 7 nations involved in a prisoner swap like this, because you've always got to give something up to get something out of it, that's not the way the Trump administration promises to work or did work. Donald Trump keeps advertising that he could have gotten Evan Gershkovich out in a day. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's all very interesting who can get who out. Paul Whelan was incarcerated during the Trump administration, and he wasn't released. And so I don't know. I mean, I don't think this has anything specifically to do with this. Is not a personality-based thing. This is based on, cold hard interests. Putin wanted Vadim Krasikov, the assassin. Biden wanted Evan Gershkovich and Paul Whelan, and then the Germans wanted to make sure that this was not just a a sort of a grubby hostage exchange, that something greater and bigger was involved. And so the Germans then added all the Russian opposition to the deal, and the Germans added their own citizens to the deal, and then Biden called up the Slovenians and the Norwegians and the Poles and made it all happen. And it is a feat of diplomatic genius that this deal was done, and President Biden and his team, and I should mention Ambassador Roger Carstens, who is the presidential special envoy for hostage affairs. He was running around the world for 2 years. I was meeting with him on a regular basis, trying to advocate for Vladimir, and he was the one, threading the needle in this very, very complicated exchange. And it is a glorious moment that 16 lives were saved. And I should point out, and we see pictures of Vladimir there. You saw the pictures before and after. He wouldn't have survived another year in jail. He would have been dead.
That's an actual life saved.
And one of the things that happened, and there's no question that his life has been saved. And there's been some question in Germany, is it okay to free a murderer? And that's a hard question, but Vladimir is alive today, and he wouldn't be alive if he wasn't released. And there's a bunch of others. I was just reading this morning about a Russian pianist who opposed the war, who just died in pretrial detention at the age of 39. People are dying in Russian prisons who oppose the war. And so it's a complicated, awful thing to let out a murderer. And for a while, I wasn't even supporting it. But at the end of the day, saving lives is what this was all about. And Vladimir is saved, and a number of others are saved. And we just have to celebrate the fact that these heroes, and Vladimir, as we've seen, is a guy who could rise and bring Russia up from the ashes afterwards and have a normal country that interacts with the West normally, with democracy and free speech. And that's what we have to hope for in the future.
We shall. Bill, thanks as always. Good to see you again this week. Bill Browder is the CEO of Hermitage Capital Management and the head of the Global Magnitsky Justice Campaign. All right, after the break, democracy versus authoritarianism, the story of a disputed election, a high court in the pocket of a strongman president, protests and violence breaking out in the streets, and an opposition leader in hiding, fearful for her life. There's a lot to learn from this one. Stay with us.
What Tractor Supply customers experience is personalized service made possible by T-Mobile for Business. With T-Mobile's reliable 5G business internet, employees get the information they need instantly. This is how business goes further with T-Mobile for Business.
Our biggest challenge? Uncertainty. Hidden fees, surcharges, who knows what to expect.
Turn shipping to your advantage.
Keep it simple with clear upfront pricing.
With USPS Ground Advantage.
When life spells heartburn, how do you spell relief? ROLAIDS. Rolaids dual active formula begins to neutralize acid on contact. Rolaids spells relief.
I still love to surf, snowboard, and of course skate. So I take Cunol Magnesium to support my muscle and bone health. Cunol's extra strength, high absorption magnesium helps me get the full benefits of magnesium. Cunol, the brand I trust.
My name is Braden. I was 5 years old when I came to St. Jude. I'll try and shorten down the story. So, I've been having these headaches that wouldn't go away. My mom, she was just crying. What they said, your son has brain cancer.
It was your worst fear coming to life.
Watching your child grow up is the dream of every parent. You can join the battle to save the lives of kids like Braden by supporting St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Families never receive a bill from St. Jude for treatment, travel, housing, or food, so they can focus on helping their child live.
What they have done for me, my son, my family. Sorry, yeah.
Life is a gift, especially for a child battling cancer. Call or go online and help save the lives of children like Braden.
Now, I'm 11 years old. We were actually doing the checkup for my brain, and they saw something in my throat. It's thyroid cancer.
It was heartbreaking to find out that he has cancer again, but we knew who we had behind us. It just gives me hope.
You can make a difference. Join with your credit or debit card for only $19 a month, and we'll send you this St. Jude t-shirt.
Without St. Jude or its donors, we would have been in a bad place.
These kids, they've done nothing wrong in the world. Finding a cure for childhood cancer, it means everything.
Help St. Jude give kids with cancer a chance.
All right, we now turn to Venezuela, where a contested election is throwing the country into chaos. There have been days of protests across the country following last week's presidential election, an election claimed by President Nicolas Maduro, who's been in power since 2013. But Maduro will not release the vote tallies to prove his victory. And the opposition party says it's because he didn't actually win. Okay, here's what's gone down. Back in January, Venezuela's highest court, which is controlled by Maduro loyalists, banned the opposition party leader Maria Corina Machado from appearing on the ballot. Ultimately, Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia stepped in as the surrogate opposition leader in her place, or the surrogate opposition candidate in her place. After Sunday's election, authorities loyal to Maduro declared that Maduro was the winner over Gonzalez Urrutia with 51% of the vote. But as it goes with these authoritarian regimes, the government did not disclose precinct-by-precinct vote counts, which would verify the results. The opposition knew this would happen, so they came with receipts. The opposition party published more than 80% of actual electoral tally sheets, which they say they received directly from polling stations throughout Venezuela on Election Day. And those tally sheets show that Gonzalez Urrutia won 66% of the vote, and Maduro received about 31%. The opposition released the results of their count on a website. NBC accessed that website on Wednesday. The United States, along with Uruguay, Argentina, and Peru, have come out and discredited Maduro's election results and are officially recognizing Gonzalez Urrutia as the winner. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken saying, quote, given the overwhelming evidence, it's clear to the United States and most importantly to the Venezuelan people that Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia won the most votes. Now is the time for the Venezuelan parties to begin discussions on a respectful, peaceful transition in accordance with Venezuelan electoral law, end quote. Maduro responded saying, quote, the United States needs to keep its nose out of Venezuela. And now, officials from 16 countries, including the United States, have released a joint statement condemning Venezuela's handling of the election. Meanwhile, Maria Corina Machado, the opposition party leader who was banned from even running, has had her offices raided and says she's currently in hiding for fear of her life, as Maduro has called for her arrest. She was seen as the most consequential, this was seen as the most consequential election in Venezuela in years. The country's economy and democracy have been crumbling under Maduro's repressive rule. The opposition movement was energized and it coalesced around a candidate who gave Maduro a real run for his money. Watch this space. All right, still ahead, gutting checks and balances and consolidating power in the office of the president. Sounds similar to the authoritarian rule we were just talking about. We're going to take you inside Project 2025's radical plan for America's defense and security.
Did you know Sling has your favorite news programs for just $40 a month?
My favorite news for just $40 a month?
My favorite news for just $40 a month?
$40 a month? My favorite news for just $40 a month?
$40?
Get your favorite news for $40 a month. Sling lets you do that.
We all need fiber for our digestive health, but less than 10% of us get enough each day. Good thing Metamucil gummies are an easy way to get prebiotic plant-based fiber with the same amount of fiber as 2 cups of broccoli. Metamucil gummies, the easy way to get your daily fiber.
Online dating? I know people meet that way, but where would I even begin?
Open laptop, go to OurTime.com, look for free. It's easy to take a look on Our Time, the dating site for people over 50.
Certain that's just the wind? Mm-hmm. Are you for imprint certain?
Certainty matters. Be for imprint certain your promo products will arrive on time. It's guaranteed. Visit forimprint.com.
For imprint, for certain.
To improve your digital security, just turn on NordVPN.
Guard yourself from data snoopers, encrypt your online traffic, and block malicious sites. Get the deal now.
For the past few weeks, we've been taking you inside Project 2025, uncovering its radical proposals for restructuring our federal government. Its overreaching goal is to vastly expand presidential powers and eliminate obstacles to presidential authority. So today we're focusing on its plans for America's national defense and security. As more Americans become aware of the Project 2025, the 922-page playbook for the next Republican presidency, Trump has conveniently started to distance himself from the authoritarian blueprint. Yet most of the chapters are authored by people from his last administration who would likely find themselves in a second Trump administration. Project 2025 dedicates 6 entire chapters to the common defense. They're filled with chilling proposals. These chapters include the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, and the intelligence community. The goal is to purge these agencies of any obstacles to Trump's authority and make the right-wing's culture wars a permanent feature of governance, including anti-trans and anti-diversity initiatives. Chapter 4 of Project 2025 is devoted to the Department of Defense, and it's authored by a former defense official. Its proposals include purging the military's leadership's ranks and advocating for the removal of generals based on their perceived political bias. Proposals also include eliminating what it terms, quote, divisive critical race theory programs and DEI initiatives. Project 2025 would also expel trans individuals from military service and, quote, rescind policies contrary to conservative governance principles. To address low military recruitment, which it blames without citing any evidence on woke policies, Project 2025 would force public school students to take a military aptitude test known as the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, a test to determine military suitability. In fact, declining recruitment goes back 10 years, and studies have attributed low recruitment to concerns over injuries, among other factors, none of which have to do with wokeness. Project 2025 would also put a stop to the Pentagon's efforts to secure U.S. elections, specifically by ending the U.S. Cyber Command's work in defending the U.S. electoral system from foreign interference. Makes you wonder why they're getting rid of a crucial safeguard against election meddling. Chapter 5 targets the Department of Homeland Security. It's authored by Ken Cuccinelli, who served as Trump's acting Homeland Security Secretary. Cuccinelli has been accused of using politics of cruelty toward the LGBT community and migrants. He fought against same-sex marriages during his tenure as Virginia's Attorney General. More recently, in 2022, he urged border states to declare an invasion of their borders and to deploy the National Guard against migrants, a stance that Trump has echoed as recently as April. Cuccinelli's taken his politics of cruelty and he's turned them into policy proposals for Project 2025, including eliminating the Department of Homeland Security entirely, which he slams as focusing on domestic terrorists. Instead, he calls for devoting resources to the border, advocating for a new, quote, standalone border and immigration agency at the cabinet level, one that would heavily militarize the border and prioritize building the wall. Project 2025 also calls for the National Security Council to conduct a rigorous review of all promotions of military generals to root out what it terms social engineering and non-defense matters. Social engineering is defined here as a broad spectrum of things that the right wing is allergic to, including climate change, critical race theory, and DEI training. While presidents have the authority to remove generals, the grounds have traditionally been based on poor performance. Doing so as a political act would tarnish the perception of the military as being apolitical. Critics warn that purging the military ranks for partisan reasons could erode crucial safeguards against dangerous orders, potentially undermining the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which states that soldiers are not obligated to follow unlawful orders. Former Secretary of the U.S. Navy Ray Mabus notes that 2 bedrocks of the U.S. military are the principle of civilian control and the rule of law. Quote, civilian control is enshrined in our Constitution and has guided us through centuries of conflict. The military does not operate outside our democratic system, but instead answers to our elected representatives and appointed civilian leaders. He then describes a troubling scenario if the military is politicized. Imagine a situation where a large group of activists gather outside the White House. Quote, as their numbers begin to swell, as their voices grow louder, the president issues an order to military commanders, take them out. Our military leadership would then be faced with an impossible choice. They'd either have to follow the clearly unlawful order of their commander-in-chief and commit crimes for which they could be prosecuted, or openly defy that order, end quote. After a quick break, I'm going to talk more about Project 2025's plan for U.S. national security with Mark Zaid, an intelligence expert and founder of the James Madison Project.
Meet the Jennifers. Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z. Each planning their future through the Chase mobile app. Gen X is planning a summer in Portugal with some help from JP Morgan Wealth Plan. Let's go, Whiskers. Gen Y is working with a banker to budget for her birthday.
You only turned 30 once.
And Gen Z, her credit's golden. Hello, new apartment. 3 gens getting ahead with Chase. Solutions that grow with you. One bank for now, for later, for life. Chase, make more of what's yours.
What would you pay for an iPad Pro? I only paid $42 on DealDash.
DealDash.com. Online auction since 2009. This PlayStation 5 sold for only 50 cents. And this smart charcoal grill sold for $16. And this Nintendo Switch sold for less than $20. Deals like these and many more happen in the thousands of daily auctions on DealDash.com. All auctions start at $0. And remember, everything must go.
I got this KitchenAid stand mixer for only $56. I got this barbecue smoker for $26.
And you get a 90-day money-back guarantee with your first purchase.
This brand new iPhone sold for less than $42. And this DJI drone sold for less than $21.
And I got it for $16 on DealDash.
And shipping is always free.
Go to DealDash.com right now and see how much you can save.
There are auctions going on right now. So what are you waiting for?
Oh, man, I love a good hotel breakfast.
Same.
Yeah, so close to the stadium. I managed to get the last room for $190.
I booked the last room a week ago.
I booked yesterday. One night, $140.
What?
How?
Some sites panic you into booking their last room, but they don't have all the availability. Instead, use Trivago. Trivago compares hotel prices from hundreds of sites, so you can save up to $50 a night.
Well, at least I got the last ticket to the game.
So did I.
Hotel Trivago.
We realize some home maintenance jobs aren't worth the risk.
That's when we call a leaf filter to protect our gutters.
Leaf Filter's patented filter technology keeps debris out of your gutters for good, guaranteed. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
20 seconds a week to lose 20% of your weight in a year with diet and exercise. That's the power of GLP-1s through Ro. Connect with a provider today at ro.co/20.
You know, there's this thing called age, and it sucks.
If you're over 50, imagine you could turn back the clock on your stiff, achy joints by years. Introducing InstaFlex Advanced.
It's restored my joints without just temporarily masking my symptoms. When you can find a product that can take that away to the point that you can live your life again, that is a miracle to me.
Get a complimentary sample by texting SECRET to 231231. InstaFlex Advanced targets the root cause of joint soreness and stiffness with a unique combination of 5 key natural ingredients. Key ingredients backed by 5 clinical studies.
I love this product. I'm telling you, it works.
InstaFlex Advanced is the #1 selling joint brand at GNC, but you can only get your complimentary sample by texting SECRET to 231231. Plus, text now, and we'll include a tube of InstaFlex pain cream for fast-acting relief absolutely free. Text SECRET to 231231 today.
Joining me now for more on Project 2025's plans for America's defense and security is Mark Zaid. He's the executive director and founder of the James Madison Project, which educates the public on intelligence gathering and operations, national security, and government wrongdoing. Mark, I spent a lot of time on defense. Chapter 7 is the intelligence community, and there are other chapters in here that talk about intelligence gathering. I just spoke at length about some of the implications for that. What concerns you on the intelligence side and in terms of the CIA in Project 2025?
Well, thanks, Allie. Good morning. So there's a lot of things. Look, historically, the Heritage Foundation has been involved in obviously many presidential administrations in giving advice from a conservative standpoint, just as there are liberal organizations that do the same on the opposite. This one, though, is different with Project 2025 because it has a very
time, but it came up again this week. John Yoo, he's a former Justice Department lawyer under the Bush administration. He authored the infamous torture memos, which justified the use of torture in the war on terror. And actually, those torture policies have contributed to the news we've just had this week about Guantanamo's continued existence and the delayed prosecution for Guantanamo detainees. John Yoo is now a senior fellow at the Claremont Institute. That's one of Project 2025's key backers. And he recently wrote a chilling op-ed in the National Review calling for revenge prosecutions against Democrats. One Trump attorney gleefully called that the vengeance memo. Talk to me about the dangers of this.
Right. So when John Yoo's memo on torture or enhanced interrogation came out back in the first Bush administration, I was working mostly in the international human rights community, dealing with war crimes and terrorism. And we could look at the memo and say, all right, you know, this is a lawyer advocating a position. I don't have to agree with it, but I could understand at least some of the legal arguments. This is different. This is not a legal policy advocation that John Yoo has come up. It is an actual retribution policy, revenge policy. He has basically said a biblical eye for an eye. They did it to us. We should exercise our authority to do it to them, whether doing it to them was the same or anything or justified. He singles out further prosecution of Hunter Biden for, if I recall, connections to foreign governments, as if Hunter Biden had anything to do with the Biden administration. He's a civilian family member. It's a scary proposal that is very similar to Project 2025 that goes well beyond ideological views and policy shifts that a certain segment of the population might want. It is revengeful, it is spiteful, it is hateful, and it is authoritarian, much in the way you were talking about with Venezuela.
Right, and I think it's really interesting that you point out that there are, you know, Donald Trump has helped us understand loyalty versus expertise, right? I didn't think loyalty was a bad thing until I came across how Donald Trump uses it in government. We don't want in our intelligence community and our defense community for loyalty to take precedence over expertise and professionalism. Thank you, Mark. As always, great to talk to you. Mark Zaid is the executive director and founder of the James Madison Project and the co-founder of Whistleblower Aid. Straight ahead, the Veep Stakes home stretch. Who's made it to the interview in person with Kamala Harris, and how is Donald Trump preparing to respond after a week of failing to land a line of attack against Kamala Harris? Plus, this week's meeting of the Velshi Band Book Club. Mohsen Hamid, the author of The Last White Man, joins me. Another hour of Velshi begins right now. Hey, good morning. It's Saturday, August the 3rd. There are 93 days until Election Day. It's been just 13 days since Vice President Kamala Harris took over the top of the ticket. And yesterday, the DNC announced that Harris has received enough votes from Democratic delegates to secure the party's presidential nomination. President Biden took to X to congratulate his vice president. Quote, "One of the best decisions I've made was picking Kamala Harris as my vice president. Now that she will be our party's nominee, I couldn't be prouder. Let's win this." There is supposed to be a debate on September 10th, but it's unclear whether Donald Trump will show up. When asked directly on Fox News yesterday, Trump said he wants to debate, while also giving a whole bunch of nonsensical reasons why he doesn't want to debate without committing to anything. And within the last hour, the Harris campaign put out a statement reading in part, quote, Donald Trump is running scared. He needs to stop playing games and show up to the debate he already committed to on September 10th. The vice president will be there one way or the other. We're happy to discuss further debates after the one both campaigns have already agreed to. Mr. Anytime, Anywhere, Anyplace should have no problem with that unless he's too scared to show up on the 10th. Now, ahead of that scheduled debate, Harris needs to announce her running mate. We know the Harris campaign vetting team has met with 6 potential candidates. We know a decision is expected before a Tuesday rally in Philadelphia, where they are anticipated